Hey folks, you know I take my trail camera intel pretty seriously. It's a huge part of how I build my hunting strategy, and I'm always looking for gear that just flat out works. Stuff I can rely on. Backed by solid people and the best customer support in the business. That's exactly why I run Tactacam Reveal cell cameras. Whether you're just getting started or you're a full-blown data junkie like me, they've got a camera to fit your budget and your hunting style. My go-to currently is the Reveal 3.0 series with fully integrated GPS. These things are dead simple to set up. Less fiddling, more scouting and hunting. And they run on most major service providers and will automatically connect you to the strongest signal in your area. So no more hiking to the top of a ridge just to realize you've got the wrong service provider. Been there, not fun. Here's the kicker. You don't even need an SD card. That means fewer trips in, less pressure on your spots, and more real-time intel sent straight to your phone. And if you pair it with a Reveal solar panel or a lithium cartridge, you can keep those cameras running longer and spend more time doing what actually matters. Scouting new ground, dialing in a setup, or maybe, just maybe, finally cleaning the garage like you told your wife you would before the season started. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Tactacam Reveal at tactacam.com. Tactacam. Everything you need to take your hunting to the next level. Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Oscio gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Oscio's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Oscio. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. Welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Tactacam Reveal Cellular Cameras. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 446. Today I'm joined by my buddy Chris Perino to talk chasing grizzly dreams and 30 years of traditional bow hunting. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. Getting ready for the upcoming holiday. Maybe do a little beaching, do a little boating, do a little firecrackering, things of that nature. Got a cool show for you guys today. Just going to kind of jump right into it. Got my buddy Chris Perino on. We talk a little bit about how we met. Actually, Jason Red, a mutual friend of ours, introduced the two of us, and he kind of suggested maybe he and I chat, given that, you know, I've been on this I'll call it a pseudo traditional bow hunting journey because it's not made it to the woods very many times with me yet, but that's the plan for the season. And so Chris and I had a chance to kind of talk prior to the podcast, and he's just a super beyond being a great hunter, he's just a super good dude. He's got crazy amounts of experience, you know, chasing critters with a traditional bow, 30 plus odd years. Everything from, you know, you name it, whitetails to predators, you know, in Alaska, grizzlies, et cetera. Right. And so it was a super cool conversation to have with him. He has an affinity for music, and we talked a little bit about that. But really, at the end of the day, you know, the interesting thing about Chris is that he was, you know, very intentional about, you know, what he was into, what he enjoyed, and how he kind of wanted to build his life, so to speak, around, you know, family and chasing passions. And so we talk a little bit about that, but more so about the kind of incredible experiences that hunting has given him over the years. So super cool conversation. Hope you guys dig the chat as much as I did. And as always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I've got on none other than Mr. Chris Perino. I met Chris by way of, I don't know, maybe we'll claim the friendship, I guess, with Jason Red, right? He's an all right guy. So I guess we'll claim that.
Yeah, he is. He's a pretty good dude for sure.
Yeah. He and I were talking, and he and I finished recording a session a couple weeks ago, and we were just kind of chopping it up afterwards. And he was like, and we were talking a little bit of traditional bow and stuff like that. And he was like, you know, have you ever talked to my buddy Chris? And I said, no. I was like, I haven't. He's like, man, he's like, you know, you should really talk to him at some point. He's like, especially as you're kind of embarking on this new traditional journey. He's like, I think you would like chatting with him. So here we are. I'm glad that we met, and I appreciate you making time on a rainy Saturday morning to hop on and chat with me, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, man. So the one thing he did tell me, I gotta see if there's a nugget of truth to this or not. But he said Chris is a good dude. He said he's also a deadhead. Is there truth to that?
I'm the killingest deadhead that ever was. That's for sure.
You were the oddball in the crowd. Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard statement to make, man. The oddball of the oddball crowd, right?
Yeah, it was back in the day. I used to go to a lot of dead concerts. I didn't really pursue in the life. I mean, I wasn't.
You weren't pursuing the lifestyle of it.
Yeah, if you line me up next to all the deadheads, I didn't really fit in. I did like the music, and I had friends that went, and I enjoyed going, but no, I didn't. I didn't
partake in the full extent.
I didn't partake in all the extracurriculars that went on, but liked the music, and it was just kind of something to do when I didn't have anything else to do. But I did like it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. What years would that have been? Just out of curiosity.
Well, probably late 80s, early 90s. Once I got married, I really didn't. Before I was married, I went to trade school in St. Louis, and then when I got out of high school, I had 2-3 years of trade school, and once I got out of trade school, I went to Chicago and worked for about a year or so. But really, it was just during that kind of. I got married in '91, so it would have been the late '80s, early '90s. Okay. Once I got married, my wife's like, no, I don't think you should. I'm like, that's cool. And my wife's super. She lets me do pretty much anything I want, and I kind of chose all the trips out west and the hunting rather than going to gallivanting around the country, going to dead shows,
right? Rather than chasing Jerry Garcia around, right?
Yeah. Well, he, to be quite honest with you, I'm not for sure, but he died in the '90s there somewhere, early mid '90s. Once that happened, everything changed a little bit, but they're still around. You're still around. I mean, you
still see them playing like some form of them. I know there was like this. I think it was called the Dark Star Orchestra. Was something that like I knew of whenever I was living in, and I say I knew of them like they were some secret thing, like they're well known. But that was like felt like, at least for some of the people that I knew that were into the Dead, like that was another kind of component of it, was the Dark Star Orchestra, and people kind of that followed the Dead really closely kind of followed them as well. And the crazy thing is that so there's you and I have a little bit of an age gap, and even when I first went to school, like went to college, like 1996, 97 ish, like there was still, it's just, I guess, a testament to how much of a following that they built, because even when I went to school, there were still Deadheads. Right now, this was also kind of getting into the territory of like Fish kind of came along at the same time, and it was like this merging of the two kind of thing, because the Dead were, I think at that point Jerry Garcia was dead, right? And so there was this other amalgamation of the Dead that were still kind of playing, right, and still attracting the Deadheads, if you will. But it's crazy how much the test of time that kind of the culture that they built kind of stood, for this long of a period of time.
Well, they did. I think it was it definitely, I like the music more than anything. And I would preference that and say not all the music. Like some of it was just too psychotic for me, but a lot of it was, to me it was, I wouldn't call it Southern rock, but it was kind of in that, country-ish rock type of, I mean, I'm not a genre guy, but it wasn't, it wasn't. It was just good music. I mean, I just liked the music. I just kind of liked it. But no, there's a Dead and Company around now. That's and I think Bob Weir is still.
He's still getting after it, man. I've seen like videos of him where he's like doing workouts and stuff before the shows and stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen those, like doing band workouts and lifting band workouts and like dumbbells and stuff like that. So good for him, man. It's like, I hope whenever I'm at his age, like I'm still doing the things I like to do.
Yeah, I don't follow any of that really that close anymore. I know they're around, and truthfully, with when I was going to that, it was all the Grateful Dead was real open with their music. Like they record everything. Guys you could easily get it, but it was all cassette tapes, and some of them were good, some of them were bad. I mean, I used to collect those, and I remember I had I had hundreds and hundreds of those bootleg tapes, and they really weren't bootlegs because they approved it, like they'd let you do it, and different shows and stuff that I'd went to, and then when the digital age come, everything is out there. Yeah,
it kind of takes away a little bit of the shine, doesn't it? Like to a degree, right? Because whenever it becomes available to anybody, because I remember whenever I met those guys I went to school with that were into the Dead, that was a big thing. Like they had, specific, shows that they were able to obtain some way, somehow, right? And it wasn't like it was online. Like they had to know somebody who had the tape or had the recording or whatever and get it. And it was, they were super proud of the collection that they had because they had very kind of, very specific shows that were kind of like well-known shows that, the ones where you would talk about, be like, man, I wish I was at that one type of thing. And then it seems like, that was almost like a hunting experience where it was like a very unique kind of like special thing. And then whenever it digitized, it was everybody could have everything. And then it became a little less special to a degree.
Well, I liked it just because most of the tapes I had a few tapes that were really high quality, they like came off the soundboards and stuff like that.
Right.
When I got to going, and I collected, I probably had 300-400 tapes, but wow. But when they come out digitally and stuff, they were it's just way better. I mean, I like them, but I still don't want to look just because I had a bootleg tape, man. It was the sound quality was so bad. It's like, I don't really want to now the sound quality's, just terrific. It's all digitized. You can find whatever you want. And I still listen to, I got both of those on my, I got a Pandora subscription and they're on my playlist. I don't, like I said, I'm not, I just like the music, but I mean, I like Leonard Skinner. I like Red Clay Strays. I like all that type of that Southern, Southern rock type of stuff.
Yeah. I love that, man. That Skinner's one of my favorite bands. That's like hands down, especially in the summer for whatever reason, whenever I'm outside, make a little fire in the fire pit and I'm going to sit down and have like a cigar and maybe a glass of bourbon or something like that. I always like to throw on Skinnerd to start my summer off. That's my jam. Or if I'm barbecuing, it's Skinnerd all day. That's my thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I go all day with them, but I bounce around. I mean, there's a lot I don't, it's kind of whatever what I feel like listening to.
All right. So the question is, how often are you hunting with tie-dye on? That's the question I'm burning to ask.
I'll be honest with you. I actually, it's kind of I got rid of all my shirts, and of course I outgrew most of them. I mean, outgrew them, and they got ratty and this, that, and the other. And my son, he's like, Dad, what'd you do with all them shirts? He goes, they're worth something. I'm like, man, I picked like all my the concert shirts and stuff that I picked up. But I had a bunch of tie-dye shirts, and I think I got rid of all that. They just wore out and didn't fit me. And it's like, nobody's going to want this stuff. Well, here recently we go to my wife and kids and grandkids. I got 2 granddaughters, and we'll go down. That's our big thing. So we go down Saturday morning. We usually go to the farmer's market, and we'll just kind of kick around and, spend time. Well, you got everybody selling, goat's milk to fresh vegetables to just what have you. Well, there's 2 or 3 people down there selling tie-dyes, and they're true to form. They're not, they're the real deal. They're not kind of the made up ones that see. And of course, they're all bunch of old hippies too,
Right.
It's like they're trying to relive the day, and they're still making them. But there's one vendor down there, and I kind of got to know her, and she made some really nice shirts. So I bought one, and the next week I bought another one, and then my daughter's like, "Oh, Dad, I want that shirt." So I picked one up, and I probably got 6 or 7 of them in my drawer. I wear them. I mean, I don't have an issue, and I actually do wear them when I go to shoots and stuff.
Yeah,
I'll kick around with my friends and stuff. Of course, they all make fun of me and stuff, and it don't bother me a bit. I'm like, man, and I've told them the same. They're like, oh man, I don't fit in. I'm like, dude, I said, I'm the killingest deadhead you're ever gonna
right.
And the guys that I know, they're like, I don't got a point,
Right.
I'll make fun of you, but I can't argue it.
Right. Man, so you mentioned you went to trade school, and I never asked you. I mean, I know you and I got a chance to talk last week a little bit while we were kind of coordinating to get this session together, but right, I never asked you what you did. So what did you go to trade school for?
I'm a plumber.
Okay.
I went to trade school in St. Louis for 2 years, and my dad worked for Bowhunting, electrical engineer, and I had really no desire to go to actually the whole trade thing for me. Truthfully, I wanted to be a guide when I got out of high school. I'm like, I want to go be a guide. I'm going out to Montana. I'm going to be a guide. That's because I've always liked to hunt and be out in the woods, and it's just what I liked. And I'm like, well, that's what I need to do. Well, my dad and I wanted to do that, or it's like, oh, I'll go in the military. I had some cousins that were in the military. I'm like, I'm going to go in the military. I'm like, they got all the time in the world. I'll be able to hunt. And, my dad, in his infinite wisdom, he's like, and when you're young, you tell your kids, hey, don't do this, do that. Tell them that. Don't stay away from that. It's not. But when you get older, like, you start hitting that 13, 14, 15, 16, and the older you get, it's like you try to, and I, didn't do it quite so good with my kids. I'd always tell them, and it's like, that's not the way to, it's like you got to persuade them. You got to kind of, and my dad was super good at it. He's like, Chris, he's like, in the military, I'd always looked at the bright side. He goes, well, look, he goes there. And I've always been fairly independent, like just kind of my own mindset. And I asked him one day, I said, Dad, why didn't you want me? He goes, Chris, he goes, I'll be honest with you. He says, I'm not saying you couldn't have made it in the military. He says, you probably would have been great at it. He says, the problem is, he says, when they told you to make your bed a certain way, he says, he says, I just had a feeling that I'd be visiting you in the brig. I'm like, oh, Dad, man, that's, he goes, I'm not saying, he says, he just a little bit strong-headed, and he's strong-willed, and he says, that ain't he says, I don't know as if you'd have made it through boot camp in one piece.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good idea. And then I had, I wanted to go out and be a guide. And he's like, why don't you do this? He goes, why don't you go to trade school? And he says, go 2 years. He says, get that out of the way. He says, then you can go do it. Knowing all good and well that if I didn't go, like if I went out of high school and went out there and did that, I probably would still be gypsying around. It's like I wouldn't. And he knew. He's like, look, he says, that's a seasonal job. He says, it's not. And he wasn't. Again, he knew. He just wasn't. He wasn't saying, oh, that's a terrible idea, don't do it.
Right.
I probably would have said, well, if you think it's a terrible idea,
then I'm doing it.
I'm going to do it. And, that's just what the things, and I'm glad he did. Like, I think I had great parents. My mom and my dad were terrific. My dad really didn't hunt, but man, he would take me hunting and supported me, and he'd go with me and take me out. And, it was kind of, we both learned together, and he took me fishing when I was super young, but as far as the hunting, he just never, never was into it. Like it just wasn't his, but he would take me, and he supported me. And that was kind of the path that I went down. And I had a couple of teachers that were into hunting and made deer salami and stuff. And they helped me out a lot. So yeah, I went to trade school in St. Louis, became a plumber, and again, picking a trade, I'm like, well, there's a lot of guys in the union around here, and they work 6 months out of the year and they take off and go duck hunt. I'm like, a trade, that's what I got to have. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So it's almost like every decision was, how do I figure out how I get in the woods?
Right.
And some of them weren't so great, like truthfully, like
I mean, they're you never bat 1,000 though. Right. So
yeah, no, I was lucky to have, I just tried to get through life batting a number, you know,
right, hitting the Mendoza line, right?
I just wanted to be on the charts.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So like, in kind of picking that trade route is, because I know, and we'll get into some hunts and things like that specifically, but it sounds like that's the thing, that really allowed you, because you've had the opportunity to do some really incredible hunts, and you've been doing this with a traditional bow for. I don't want to misspeak, but I want to say something around 30 years, if I'm not mistaken. Right.
Yeah. I hunted 2 years with a comp. I mean, when I started, obviously it was a compound, and I had 2-3 years there that when I started, I was shooting a compound, and I hung around, just got in with different groups. And when I got in with the groups of guys around here that were older than me, and they were kind of successful, and they were doing it, all of them guys shot recurves. Very few of them shot longbows, but they were that's just what they did. So I gravitated towards it, not so much that I loved the equipment, that I was like, oh, it's like I wasn't, oh, they're shooting trad bows, I'm gonna do that. Wasn't
right.
They were very effective with, I looked at different groups of guys, and it's like, man, you guys kill some stuff. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't really care about, I shot archery league with a lot of guys that were really, really good shots. Like they were just hands down, they'd shoot 300 rounds, and they would consistently shoot at 298, 290, like just really good shots.
Yeah.
Like with compounds, but they weren't hunters. They did not. Yeah. They and the guys that shot recurves were not. They definitely didn't score near as well and didn't win as much stuff. And they never really cared. Like they were a lot of fun to hang. Like I just liked hanging out with them. But man, when they got in the woods, they were really good. They were all, and they were kind of all tradesmen. They were boiler makers and iron workers, and drove cement trucks, and they were kind of blue collar guys. But that's what they did, and that's led me to kind of get into that. And then once I got into it, I really did like it. Like I had some guys that were really good, big into PBS, and they really liked, that was their passion. Shooting recurves and stuff like that, and they were really good at it. Like they shot a lot of animals, and they'd always seemed like they were the guys always doing stuff too. Like they'd go out we went out to Colorado, and we did this, and we went here, and it's like, oh, that's what I want to do. So I kind of, I hung around them as much as I could, and they bust your chops too. Like if you shot a compound around. It was all good hearted, but that they had fun. I'd go to local shoots, and I enjoyed hanging around them, and I got to kind of hanging around the guys that were just really, really intense about it.
Yeah.
And they were all, I was in my, early 20s, and I thought they were old. I'm like, man, these guys are 40, 45 years old. Like these guys are,
right.
They ain't got much time left. Now it's like, oh, 45. I wish I was 45.
So you say that, that's like that's right around where I'm at, and so it's like I'm trying to squeeze every last drop out of things that I can, just because we all have a limit, as far as like what we're how long we're capable of doing the things we like to do and stuff like that. And I think it's, I don't try to dwell on it, but I definitely try to keep it in the picture. That way, the days where maybe you're like, I'm not going to go do this today. It's like you get the reminder of like, man, it's not that you have to do it. It's that you get to do it. And there's probably be a time when you won't be able to do it that you wish you would, that you wish you could. Right.
No, life is fleeting. Like there's no question. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff in my life, and I never, again, my parents were really good to me. I do, I do believe in God. I even though like I said, I listening to the Grateful Dead and going to Dead shows and saying, hey, I believe in that there's a God, and Christ came, died for my sins. I've always kind of lived life really just kind of like it is short, and it really is short. Like I remember the guys that I hung out with having like they'll have had like the 50th. One of them had a 50th birthday, and it was really weighing on him. And I'm like, 50, man. I'll never be 50. It's like that's way out there. But it's man, it's not. Oh gosh, it really is. Yeah. And my dad. That was one thing my dad always kind of told me too. He says, "Look, life ain't forever." He says, and I. Like again, I haven't made the right decisions because probably when I should have been working, I was hunting. I remember when I got out of, I had high school. I graduated high school in '85, and then when I went to trade school, and then when I got out of trade school, so I had 2 years of trade school, and you got to have a 4-year apprenticeship to get your plumbing license. So I went to trade school. I got that degree, and my dad was he was like, man, go get that, and you'll have a trade to fall back on. Well, once I got out of trade school, I'm like, well, I need to get my license. I need to get. So then I got a job. I started working and started making what I thought at the time was great money. I was buying Swarovski binoculars and buying all this stuff, and I could afford to go. It's like, well, man, I don't know if I want to, I don't want to go guide somebody to hunt. I want to hunt myself. And it's like, well, heck with that. I can work really, really hard, and then I can go. And I lived at home, I lived at home, and life was good. I had a truck, I had gas in the tank, and I had kind of free time. I worked a lot in the summer, but you were
keeping it simple, man. You were keeping the main thing, and keeping life simple.
It was extremely simple, and it's I look at my kids and life today with and not to get on go down any rabbit hole on the technology and the phones, but I truly don't get it. Like I don't like the social media aspect of it. It's like, Jesus is freaking insane. Like I don't. Yeah. I think
complicates things, man. Things aren't that hard. We make them a lot harder than they need to be.
Oh, we do, and the pressures. Everybody's running. It's like I get out in the woods. I miss a deer. I get up and go hunt again. It's like okay, I missed them. I don't freaking overthink it. I'm not going to post it. Nobody. I don't. I'm not going to tell everybody, and vice versa. I'm not. Right.
You're not looking to see what everybody else is necessarily doing. No, either.
I don't. I'm not in a vindictive way, but it's just not healthy for me. I'm like, well, that's great, and nobody knows what the circumstance is of this, that, and the other. You're just inundated with all you begin to look at it like, oh, I'm terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's just not the case, but
right. So
but no, it's go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so whenever you finished your schooling and stuff like that, and then you got a job and you're living that good, simple life back in the day, right? When did the I guess just like when did you start traveling to hunt? Like when did that? Because you started off wanting to kind of be a guide, and so I'm thinking you already had these aspirations of going to places you've never seen before, right?
I did. I really wanted, again, a lot of it in high school and trade school, you had magazines. Like this is all before the time. You didn't have freaking an iPhone. You didn't have internet. You didn't. I mean, maybe there was internet, and maybe there was some of that stuff. I'm not a technology buff now, so in the early years of it, I never had I didn't have a computer till I was 35, 40 years old. I don't know. I mean, it was, I had a flip phone, and when the first iPhones came out was just, I'm like, oh man, that'll do all that. But I just never was really, really into that, but I would read magazines and stuff, go get magazines on lunch. And heck, I used to, in high school, my mom would give me lunch money, and if I wasn't hungry, man, I'd skip a day or two so I could go buy a Bowhunter magazine. And then that's just what I'd read. And I'd read all the stories of, guys going caribou hunting and doing all this real exotic stuff. And I was like, oh man, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And again, trade school allowed me to, I went to trade school, got my license, and was, worked pretty hard. I definitely worked hard and made some money, but I had the time. I mean, you can work really hard and, 60, 80 hours a week and make a ton of money, but you got no time. So, it's like you got to have a little money, but you also have to have the time. And I would work just, again, living at home and doing what I did. I would do it just enough to where I could take off. And I used to go elk hunting. I'd go to Colorado, but to answer the question, or try to answer the question, as soon as I got out of high school, got through trade school, and which would have been, I got married in 91, but I think I graduated trade school in 87, 88. But once I got out of pretty much 87, 88, I started going. Like I remember driving out to Colorado the first year, and it'd be Colorado, and it'd be just stuff that I could drive to, and then I got to where I was going to Canada, and then I always wanted to hunt bear. Like bears were always, I just loved hunting. I always wanted to go bear hunt. Yeah, and I hunted black bears a ton of. I've probably hunted. I've hunted them in 2 or 3 states and every province in Canada and Alaska. I'd go on black bear hunts, and I'd do that. And that was in the spring. So, you could spring hunt black bears in the spring, and that didn't affect elk season in the fall or deer season in October, November. So it was kind of like just whatever season came in, it's like I'd figure out what I could do. But then it'd be like, oh well, lion season comes in January, so I can go lion hunting, and I'll go bear hunting, and then I'll roll into the summer and take a little break and work, and then beginning of September, elk season, stuff like that, and October would be deer season. Right. And deer season used to get out or go out around New Year's. So then we used to go from New Year's, and we'd go down to the southern states like Alabama, Mississippi. Those southern states, their season would go into, like through January. Right. So some of the seasons down there wouldn't go out till late January, 1st of February. So we'd go down there and hunt for a couple of weeks, and not really, nothing was really, we'd go hunt paper, just wherever we could hunt. Like it was kind of like get in a car, get in the truck, pack everything up, and go. I mean, it was dirt cheap. I mean, go, tags weren't nothing, and I had the time, and that's what I did. And even when I got married in 91, and again, my wife is, she's told me a lot when I was younger. She's like, nobody would put up with you. And I never, same deal. It's taken me like 25 years to say, you're right. You are really right. Like I see it now. Right. like I didn't see it back in the day. I'm like, what do you mean? Man, I'm bringing elk meat home, and I'm right. It's like I'm feeding the family. She's like, you're not doing this. She's right. I was like, I wasn't doing it. I was doing it because I just
because you loved it.
She was good at. She really was. I had a lot of friends that and I've told people this before. I'm like, look, when it comes to hunting, you don't want to be my friend. I said, because I said all my friends went straight to divorce court.
Yeah.
Like they did. Like
Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 of them that legitimately, it's like, and their wives hated me. Like they didn't want, nobody could hang out with me. I'm like,
right.
because I'm like, I remember one time we were going to antelope hunting. I talked to some friends of mine. I'm like, hey, let's go antelope. Oh yeah, I want to do that. Well, antelope hunts are usually 3-day ordeals. They're not, you go out and hunt for 3 days and
right.
you drive out and drive. They're not, month-long excursions.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. Well, everything was always up to, like, well, set it up. Like I knew something. I'm like, I don't really, I'll find us a place and we'll go. And so I set everything up, and I had 2 buddies, and I said, I didn't have all I had like an old Dodge flatbed truck, and I'm like, man, 3 guys, this is going to be a rough trip. Well, one of my buddies had a pretty nice, at the time, it was a pretty nice Chevy truck, and he just got married, and he goes, oh, I'll drive. He goes, if you pay for gas and everything, I'll drive. Well, we got about 2 hours out of St. Louis, and we were driving out, and the fuel pump goes out of it. Well, the fuel pump was in the gas tank. So he's like, I'm going to call. I said, no. I said, don't call your wife. Don't do it. I said, don't do it. I said, we'll figure this out. So, he calls his wife, and his wife's like, well, what are you going to do? She says, I think you just need to come back. I told my 2 buddies, I said, listen, I said, you guys can go back if you want. I said, I'm not going back. I said, so I called my dad. I said, Dad, I said, can you bring my truck down here? And they're like, you're going to have your dad? I'm like, yeah, it's almost 2 or an hour and a half away from freaking home. I said, he'd bring me the truck. I said, we'll go. Well, we ended up getting his truck at the Chevy dealer. And obviously they didn't have a part, it's like drop the gas. I mean, it was a major ordeal. It's like, well, shoot, man, we're not going to get it fixed to be able to go. But his wife wanted him to turn around and come home. And then the kicker was she was mad that it's like the truck broke down on our trip. So it was like all of our fault.
Right.
Like, I'm like, what the hell are you thinking? I'm like, nothing for nothing, but I said,
it was Chris's fault.
It was my fault. Your fuel pump went out, and
it's good stuff.
I mean, I wasn't, wishing for it, but I just, that's kind of the way I maintained.
Yeah.
But my wife was, the flip side was, one year I went moose hunting up in not Alberta, but British Columbia. And it was a fly-in deal. Well, little planes don't fly when the weather, like they're line of sight. So, you get into them cubs and beavers, and little planes, it gets socked in. They don't fly. Yeah. Like you're not. So we got up there, went on this moose hunt. Well, at the end of the hunt, we literally got socked in for like 5 or 6 days after the hunt. Like every day they'd radio in about 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're like, yeah, we're not flying. And where we were was quite a jaunt from where they flew us out. It was like an hour and a half, 2-hour flight on a beaver. So it was and they just, there was places that was socked in, so they just the weather wouldn't allow them to get up there. And so when they'd call and say they weren't coming, well, I got to hunt for, I kept hunting, and it's like, this is great, It's like so, but it kind of got, at a certain point, it's like, man, we got to, and my buddy's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? He's like, we got to get home. I said, listen, I call my wife and just tell her what was up. And she's like, yeah, okay. We ended up getting out. We get out and we get back. Well, and then we started taking these red eyes to get home. Well, we took a red eye out of Seattle to back to St. Louis, and my buddy's like, his wife had to work, and she's like, well, how are you going to get home? Well, we got in at, I want to say 4 or 5 in the morning or something. And I said, I'll call my dad. I said, I think I can get my dad. She goes, well, why don't you call Jody? Or no. I'm like, I'm not going to call her. It's like, because I've been gone for 2.5, 3 weeks. It's like, man, if I call her, and we had our son, and I knew what she'd say. She'd be like, yeah, I'll come get you, but it's going to be 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, my buddy's wife had called my wife. She's like, can you go get him? Because she was just like, she was half livid,
Right.
Like, she just didn't understand. It's like, look, we're socked in. We can't she just did not understand any of the situation.
Right.
And I would, at that age, I made it worse because I just poured fuel on the fire. Like, I'd say, yeah, we could, like, and it was, for them, it was just serious stuff. Like, she would get mad, and I'd just kind of keep pouring it on.
Right.
But she called my wife, and my wife told her, she goes, they've been gone for 3 weeks. She says, I ain't getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning with the baby to go get them. She says, I'll go get them. She says, but they can just wait at the airport until, our son gets up. And
right.
She says, I can go get them, but I'm not. And, they just, and so she was super cool.
Yeah.
Then there was another time I was in Colorado. I went mule deer hunting. Well, I drove out and I had to work, and I drove straight out there. I literally get out there, get in the stand, and I drove all night long, got in the stand. I was just wiped out, and deer comes by, I shoot it, and I'm like, literally it was bang, bang, bang. I'm like, wow. So I called home, and I couldn't get my wife, and I got my mom, and my mom says, Save, she says, you talked to Jody? I said, no. I said, what's wrong? And she goes, well, you need to call her. So I called her. Well, she was in the hospital.
Jeez.
I'm like, what's going on? She goes, she says, her appendix, she had to have her appendix taken out. Yeah. So it was like bang, bang.
Yeah.
I said, well, and she didn't call me or nothing. She's like, she says, it's okay. She says, they took it out this morning. She says, I wasn't feeling good. And she says, I said, well, this was not before cell service like we had. I had cell phone, and
right.
She could have called, but she's like, she never called. So I said to her, I said, I'm coming home. And I swear this is a true story. I mean, it's true as true can be. I said, well, I'm coming home. She goes, you got something, didn't you? I'm like, well, actually I did. But I said, she goes, that's why you're coming.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome.
I'm like, well, I'd come home even if I didn't. She says, no, you would.
Oh man, dude, it takes a special, when you have these passions, right? Like whatever it is, whether it's hunting or whether someone's into, whatever it happens to be, golf or whatever, right? If you have a real passion for those things, it takes a very understanding and supportive spouse to allow you to kind of explore and experience those things to the fullest, and it's, anyone that I know who gets to do the things that they really like to do to the extent that they'd like to do them, it always takes, someone on the other side that just kind of knows that that's part of who they are. Right. And you and that's what you signed up for to a degree. But I'm curious, for you, like you're just talking about a fly-in moose hunt, your, mule deer hunt, antelope hunt. I know you've hunted a ton of bears and stuff like that over the years, all with a traditional bow. I'm curious, what if you can think about like all the hunts that you've done, I know it's been a lot of them, whitetails included, is there one that you think back on that had like the biggest impact on you? That whether it was either like you achieved a goal or just the experience was something that you'll never forget or whatever the case was. Is there one that kind of stands out to you?
Well, I would, again, I always I've always it's kind of like I never really picked a animal that I wanted. It's like I just wanted to hunt. So
Right.
I picked a animal. I always liked. I used to read again in those magazines. Read those old articles about Fred Bear and Fred Bear going to Alaska and hunting grizzly bears. And I kind of never thought I would get to do that. I'm like, man, grizzly bear is will be out of the picture for me.
Right.
And a lot of guys go shoot the slam, they shoot the super slam and they shoot the sheep and they shoot the North American 28 or 29. And I'm like, it's probably not in the cards for me. But I really wanted to go grizzly bear hunting. I'm like, I don't think I can ever do that because I don't think I can afford it. And it's like, I don't think I could do it. And I would always tell guys, friends of mine, that when I'd go on moose hunts and I'd get to talking to different guys in Montana that I knew, and some of them were like, they were older than me, had different connections, and I'd say, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. Just kind of talking about it, not really putting the wheels in motion. And in 2003, and so it would have been before that. So I'm going to back up a little bit. When early on, I got into hunting recurves. Well, then I got into making them. So I got into, and I'd make them in my garage and stuff. So I made my own bows, own recurves. First one, I think I got made 92 is when I started. Okay. So in 92 to 2005, I hunted with just recurves that I built. And I just, I liked it. I liked building them. It was all a hobby, but I always, and so when I'd go hunt and whatever, when I hunting with bows or building bows was always, they did something. Like once I got done with the bow, it would fling arrows, and I thought, man, this is the coolest thing ever. Yeah. So I really, really liked that, and that would always kind of added to all the hunts for me.
Well, it came from your hands. It's like how much more connected could you be to the hunt? Like when you make the weapon.
No, it was. I liked it. I enjoyed making them. I'd go to work. I'd made pretty much my money plumbing in my trade, but I come home and work out in the garage and had this little shop set up, and I just liked it. I liked trying to figure it out. I built several bows that didn't work, but once I got them to where they were, and then each one I made was just a little better and a little better, but I would make them, but I really, the ultimate goal for me was like, man, I want to hunt with, I loved hunting with bows that I built. And I would, so that journey would be like, I want to kill, and I just wanted to take, whitetail, whatever, with the bows I hunted with, and again, the bears, I always loved going black bear hunting in the spring, and I got to where I wanted to. It's like, I want to shoot a grizzly bear. I want to shoot a grizzly bear, and just the allure of it, like any predators, lions, or any. I've never been to Africa, but you get into predators, they're way different than moose, elk, or deer, or anything that's they're animals of flight. Yeah. And bears, black bears inherently are not. I've hunted them, bait, spot and stalk, just any way you can. Dogs, I've done it about every method that you can do it, set water holes, the whole 9 yards. But and had some success, doing it pretty much all different methods to take. And but I never really had. I never really had close calls. Like I never really had anything. Black bears and even grizzly bears, they kind of want to get around to get away from you. But you get into those grizzly bears and stuff like that. They have a bit like if something's going to happen, and especially being that close, it's like shoot a grizzly bear at 200 yards. I've heard of guys and they go out and shoot them with a rifle. I'm not inherently. I'm not fearful.
That doesn't do it for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, it's like I'm not. But boy, you start getting that under 20, 10, 12, 15 yards, that is next level. Like that is just. And anyway, I always wanted to do that, reading the magazines, and I had a friend when I was on that moose hunt that he had knew a guy in Montana that had bought an outfit up in British Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, man, he says, and he was a kind of a younger guy. He goes, man, you need to get a hold of Brian. He goes, he's got grizzly bears in that concession he bought. I'm like, really? And so I started thinking, and I'm like, oh man, how can I pull this off? And so I called him one night and I talked to him, and this would have been like in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2000, I called him and talked to him, and I'm like, oh, and it was a lot of money. Like it was, I think at that point it still was. And I hope my wife don't listen to this podcast, but it was in that 16 to, all in, it was just under 20. Like by the time you got the hunt, the tags, the airfare,
travel.
It's like, oh, this is how much. But it was a it was a 3.5 week long hunt,
right?
Backpack hunt. Like it was really intense. It was fly in and backpack up into an old burn and hunt them off of blueberries and spot and stalk. And I'm like, it's like, so I called it my once in a lifetime hunt. That's how I sold it to her. I'm like, hey, once in a lifetime. And I said, I really want to do this. I said, what do you think? And well, actually, when I talked to him in 2000, I like booked it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in 2000. I'm going to do this. So I got everything booked and like started piecemealing my deposit. I'm like, okay, I'll send you this much in the spring and this much. And then I was booked for 2003.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I knew I couldn't do it all in 1 year. Like there's no way I'm going to come up with the funds to pay this off in a year. So I'm like, well, I'll book it for 2 years. And he's like, and the guy that I was going with was just super, was kind of a go-getter, and he was really intense. Like I said, but I want you to guide me. Like I don't want to get up there and get a guide. I want you to go with you. He says, okay. 2003, he says, we'll go. So I started that, and it's like, I got to tell my wife, I'm not going to be able to pull this one off without telling her. And
right.
So I'm like, and she always like, well, what's it going to cost? I said, well, I'll sell this and I'll do that. Usually it was stuff that I had, I was like, well, what if I do this? Or if I'll work a couple extra odd jobs. And she's like, well, if you think you can do it, do it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, great. So once I got the okay with her, I'm like, oh man, I'm going grizzly bear hunting. And I remembered the night that I told them that I called them and I like secured the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't sleep all that night. That was 2 years before. I'm like, man, I just booked a grizzly bear hunt. And I was talking to guys that had been there. Was talking to some different guys that were in the area, and just the whole deal, like that whole process. And it's like, man, I am booked. So I got it booked, and over the next 2 years, again, I started kind of piecemeal it together. Well, when I went on that trip, I got a bear tag, and I got up there was, moose. So I'm like, I'm going to get a bear tag and a moose tag. So but my primary, like the grizzly bear is really, really what I wanted.
Right.
And so, and I had done some backpacking and some of that type of stuff, but never to this extent. Like never fly in on a float plane, drop off at a lake, and then good luck. And then go off the lake. And there's no, like in British Columbia, there's no, you can go to Colorado and there's trails everywhere. Like they maintain them, and you got hikers. Like there's just, it's like a road right through the wilderness, but you don't have that in British, up there. There's just nobody's doing it.
It's like the bush.
Flies into a lake and says, "Oh, I'm going to take a nature hike up." There's nobody's there. It's just, it's total wilderness. Like it's the coolest place ever. And we bushwhacked in off this lake to get up where this old burn was, and backpacked in there and And there was another guy that was hunting with us too. Like they had some pack horses where they packed some gear up in there to like a base camp, and then once we got there, we went to the back of the burn. So one guy hunted, this burn was like 3 miles by maybe 5 miles. So one guy hunted one end, and we went to the other end, and we got up in there, and just getting there was I mean, it was worth the price of admission just going.
Right.
And I went, and every time when I booked the hunt, I was excited, but when I actually started, when I got on the plane and I started flying, it's like, I'm going. So I got up to Vancouver, got up to Smithers, BC, and then that's where we took the float plane in. And when we pulled it, landed on that lake, I'm like, this is great. This is the best thing ever. And it was just like some of the wildest country I'd seen at that point, ever. I mean, it was, I was up there for a moose hunt kind of in the same area, but when I went back for the grizzly bear hunt, it was like another 100 miles north of there. And man, it was really remote. So I got up there, and I never forget, we were glassing, and like we started spotting bears, and it's like, this is great. This is the best. I got to do. It's like I wanted to rebook on day one for the next 10 years. I'm like, well, if my wife divorced me, she'll still take half of this. And that with my other half, I can do this 5 more times. Right. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it was some convoluted thought process I had.
Right.
But so we got up there and backpacked in there, saw the first bear, and we were seeing a lot of, and you're up high, everything's burned off, you can do a lot of glassing, and those bears are just, they'd come out of the unburnt, the edges, and they'd filter into them, and you could glass them up, and the higher it was, the less vegetation, or the less, all the trees were just scorched off, so you could see them up high. They really stood out. And it's like, oh, there's a bear, there's a sow with cubs, and it was like, this is gonna be great. And I ended up shooting a bear like the 5th day of that hunt. I shot a really, really nice boar. And hunting predators, and when you go to bears, you have young bears, you have old bears, you have sows, you have the boars, so the sows and the cubs are afraid of the boars, the little boars are afraid of the big, but when you get to the big boars, there's nothing they're afraid. They have zero enemies. Like maybe another big boar they might not get along with, but as far as, so they just kind of go through life, they just
being king of the mountain.
They don't even look, like they won't even, like a deer will walk through the woods and he'll take a few steps and pick his head up and smell and look.
Those boars are just going where they're going, and that's it.
Yeah, they just put their head in. It's like I remember when the bear was, we spotted him and we started moving down to him, and that's the one thing I'm like, this. I said,
how insane does that feel? Like you see this apex predator and you're like, yep, I'm just going to walk toward him now. You know what I mean? Like for the first time.
Well, they're not like they don't let you just walk up and shoot them. Like the wind is absolutely, but they don't, as far as.
But I mean, your internal dialogue, like you're seeing this thing that's like a killer, right? It's like that's the thing that it does the best, right? And now I'm going to just approach it. Now I get you have to be strategic in how you approach, and the wind, and make sure all the things you need to do whenever you're spotting and stalking in general. But just like. Mentally, was there a part of you that was like, there's this thing up here that's like an apex predator, I'm just going to see how close I can get?
Well, I wanted to do it. So I had wanted to do it so bad. Like I wanted to be there in the work. It's like, oh, this is like, and I really want, like, I'm like, other guys have done it. I can, this is bear. I've shot plenty of animals. It's like, man, nothing you run an arrow through something as long as hard, whatever, nothing makes it. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, you shoot Sasquatch through the lungs, and he's gonna, they're gonna die. Like, it's not. And I had enough experience with the bears, and I kind of felt like, I'm like, well, don't wound them, don't hit them, don't. And I told myself before I went on that hunt, really, that it's like, I will not take a shot. Like, I kept kind of mentally going through it. It's like, I'm not going to take it. If the bear is close enough to me and he sees me, I'm like, I'm not going to shoot him. And I'm not going to take I'm going to not take a mediocre shot. Like, what if I take a shot, it has to be like, cause there was a lot. I mean, it not looking at me or seeing me, like, what happens is, or what I've seen happen, or again, in my mind, what happens is when they associate the pain or the hurt from what they're seeing, now that's what they're going to turn all their focus on you. Right. And them focusing on me was not what I was after. That was not what I was up there for. And I'm like, and if they don't, then I just, it's like, if I can, slide one in the boiler room and they have no clue who did it. The word, if he, he's got 360 degrees to start running, and if he runs any, if he doesn't come towards me, I'm like, it's kind of a roulette wheel, but I'm like, I'll take that chance, because most likely he's gonna, I'll be okay. Right. So that was my mindset going into it, and it worked out perfect. But I remember seeing the bear and making a plan to get down, and it was kind of midday when we had spotted them, so the thermals were rising and coming up pretty steady, and we started down in on him, and we were going down, and he was kind of coming up, and we got in there, and when he was at 100 yards, it's like, oh, there's a bear. And when he got to 75, it's like, man, that's a grizzly. That's a pretty good. The closer he got, but when he crested the 30-yard mark, like when he started coming, I'm like, this is the stupidest. Like, I usually don't think things are stupid, but I'm like, this is freaking stupid. Like, what are you thinking? Like, I would not really admit that any time that it's like, oh, I made a bad decision. But when he got to within that 20-yard mark, and and then I could hear him, he just kind of huff, and he just kind of, and he was just eating blueberries, and he got to this log that he had to like step over, and he kind of swayed back and forth, and there was like blueberries on the other side. And I remember the bear, it's like he was mad that he had to step over the log. Like and this was an 18-year-old, 8 foot. Like, he was just as big a bear as I'd ever seen in my life. And it's like, he didn't care about nothing. Like, he got to that log, and it's like he was just put out that he had to. How dare a log be in my way? Oh man, when he gets over that log, he's really not going to be happy.
So, like, as he's getting over that, like, how close is he at this point now?
I shot him at like 12 yards. Like, when he was probably at 20 when he was at that log, and I'm like, and I thought about, I'm like, oh, shoot him, and I'm like, no, don't do it, let him. He's gonna give you a little better shot. And I actually started to put tension and draw, and I think there was something in my mind. And I'm very, like, I'm not saying I'm telepathic or anything, but I have definitely learned shooting a recurve and on my journey that I don't necessarily, if my mind says, like, if I'm like, man, this is not a good idea. This is not, if there's something, if I'm hesitating in any way, I usually try to listen to it. Like, I try to, it's like, cause I've taken shots, I've done stuff in the past. It's like, it's not the greatest shot, just shoot. But, and it doesn't work out. And on the flip side of that, I've like held up and been a little patient. It's like, I usually get a really good shot, really good angle. And you know that. I mean, I know it I do the same thing on deer or whatever. It's like, okay, is this but if it doesn't feel good, I try not to like fight it. But I mean, I want to take the shot, so I mean, I'm usually pretty anxious. But
Right.
but if they set themselves up and turn, and I remember that bear coming over the log. He was within, he was kind of coming to me just a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is a terrible angle, terrible angle. Well, then he turned and he swung his front arm over to take a step, like he just perfect, like kind of broadside, trying to and he was swinging away from me, and he was still like just. He put his mouth over them blueberry bushes and just strip me, like he just, oh wow, leaves
Right.
and everything, and he was just munching away. And when he turned and put that arm forward, I'm like, well, this is it. Like, this is like
Doesn't get
12
any better than
yards.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
like, this is the shot. So I shot him, and he didn't know, didn't know what happened, and took off, and he went like 60 yards and was deader than a doornail.
Wow.
But I went, and I knew, or I felt like, I'm like, that was a great shot. It's like, there's no way he survives that.
Right.
And I remember we got over to the bear. Most of the time you shoot a deer, you shoot an elk, you shoot an animal. Once you go find them, it's like you shoot a good buck. You want to get your hands on them. It's like, oh, I want to look at the rack, or you just want to, you want to touch the horns, or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just, and I remember that bear, I was standing over him, and I was like, and I know he's dead. I know he is, but I'm like, there was a little bit of hesitation. It's like, I'm not touching, look at, he had a crease in his head. And he just, everything about him said, if I come back to life, I'm going to kill all of you.
Right.
He was just so impressive.
Wow.
And so we shot and we're 3-4 miles, we're 6 miles from the lake and 2-3 miles into this burn. I'm just 2 days before I get back even to the lake. So where we were from where we spiked out, we were, again, I shot him. We were up and we were in pretty heavy where we were. So we had left our spike camp and was just hunting. Mm-hmm. And I remember shooting it, and I'm like, this is the greatest. This was the best hunt ever. And so we shot that bear, and then we took some pictures, and it was like 5-6 o'clock, and we ended up, we both. I mean, I had I had my full pack on. We didn't have tents. We didn't really have sleeping bags or anything like that. But we had enough stuff to stay out all night. And I remember. We took the pictures, and then we got us got a little fire going, and by the fire, we were skinning the bear out. So we were like maybe midnight or so, skinning the bear out, and put the hide up over this downfall. Like we put put him up, put the rug or the skin with the head in it up over the downfall, and blow down. And I remember sitting there, and I didn't even sleep that night. I just stayed. It's like I just couldn't believe. And the fire was going, and I was just sitting up next to the log, and we throwing wood in the fire, and I could see that freaking hide right there, and it was great. I mean, it was just
a dream come true, literally, right?
It was, and really that hunt. I mean, so we ended up shooting that bear, and again, that was 3-4 days into the hunt. And, I mean, I was back there hunting 7-8 days. Well, when we got back, Brian's like, I'm like, he goes, you want to go back to the lake? And he says, we'll go moose hunting. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. So we get back, and we get everything packed back to the main camp, and they got pack horses into that camp. So once we got back to that camp, I think we took one pack horse, packed stuff on there, and then we backpacked out. So we went out, and was a boat that we, took across the lake to there was another little cabin over there. Like they had a place where we went in, and we tied the horses up. We had a little corral, and we had a little boat that went over to where the plane had dropped us off, and there was a little cabin there that we stayed in. and got all our stuff, and we were going back over to that cabin, and we get to that cabin, and my guide, Brian, he's like, "You hear that moose?" I'm like, "No, I don't." And it's like we were listening. He goes, "There's a moose across the lake." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I can hear it." He goes, "Let's go." And again, Brian was very much a go-getter. Like he wanted to hunt. Like it's like he was as intense as, and he liked me because I'm like, yeah, that's, like everything was a good idea. I'm like, yeah, it's a good idea. Let's go over there.
Right.
And so, and he was again, he was very intense. And even shooting a grizzly bear, I mean, I think he got as big. He goes, "Oh, that was great! That was great!" That was like he was as excited about it as I was. Like he's like, "Oh man, he was close, wasn't he?" I'm like, "Yeah, he was." And so he was getting a kick out of it. And we heard that moose. We got back, so he goes, "Get your bow, let's go." So we get the bow, we throw it into this little lund, with like a 5-horse on it or something.
Right.
And, we threw a backpack in there, just throwing stuff in the boat. It's like, okay, and so we get over to the edge. When we got over to the edge of the lake, I'm like, oh man, I can hear him. I can hear that moose. And he goes, well, we'll park, land, we'll pull the boat in over here, and we'll just try to go down to him. So we did that, and we were like on the edge of the lake, kind of moving around the edge of the lake, and I could hear, the closer we'd get, the more I could hear him grunting and just like I could hear him just plain as day. I'm like, man, he is right here somewhere. And Brian's like, "Go up there." He goes, "I'm going to call to him." I don't, and I mean, I had been moose hunting at that point, 1 or 2 times. Like I shot a Shiras moose in Wyoming, and that I went on that moose hunt and I didn't get one, but I wouldn't say that I was a moose hunter,
Right.
And I'm like, well, this is cool. And he goes, "I'm going to call." He says, and I said, "Well, how close you want me to get?" He said, "I just get up there 50, 60 yards from me." He says, "And I'll call." I'm like, okay. So I started moving towards where he was grunting from. And again, we were right on the edge of the lake, probably 20, 30 feet off the lake. And I remember I was there was like a game trail, and I was on this game trail, and I was just walking along because that was the easiest path to walk. I'm like just walking along the game trail, and I knelt down on that game trail, and I'm like, yeah, this is a good spot. And the trail was pretty pronounced. I'm like, well, I got to thinking, I'm like, if a moose was coming down through here, this is probably the path he'd take too.
Right.
And he started calling. Well, when he started calling, then I seen the moose, like as soon as he started calling, that moose started calling back, and he's bawling like he's kind of acting like a cow. And the moose is coming, like he's just coming, and I could see him, and he's about 80 yards out. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, he's going to be like, something was telling me that he was going to be on. It's like, this is a bad spot. And I was kind of in the open, like I was just knelt down, hunkered down on the trail. So I was watching him, and I stood up, and there was 3 really big pine trees, and a lot of them pine trees, the bigger ones, they'll have a lot of cuttings. The pine squirrels and stuff will cut the acorns, and usually at the base of them trees, man, it's just a ton of cuttings, and which is super quiet, if you stand on them or get on them. Like, so there's these big pine trees, and they were big, like they were 24 inches in diameter. So I'm like, well, go stand behind one of them pine trees, which is literally like 3 or 4 yards off this trail. And I'm like, okay, I'll hide behind a tree. So I'm hiding behind a tree, facing the tree, looking out the side. I could see the moose coming, and I'm looking at the trail I was on and the moose, and I'm just looking at it. And I'm like, he's on the trail. He's on that trail. I mean, he's gonna end up, if he stays on that trail, he's gonna end up right here. And he's going straight, and he's gonna go straight to Brian. And I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be close. So I'm like, oh, what do I do? So I turned my back to the tree. To where I could shoot, because I'm a right-handed shooter. So he was coming to my, he's coming down like I was facing back towards Brian calling, and he was coming down this trail to the left of me. And I'm like, well, this is going to be that would be a perfect shot. But I've got my back to this tree, and I'm kind of inching my way around the cuttings. And I'd peek around that one side looking at the bull, and he's just like textbook. He's walking down that trail, and he gets down that trail, and the whole time he's down that trail, his eyes are all rolled back in his head, and he's rolling his head, the palms, and they try to intimidate you, so he's like posturing the whole way, and he's kind of and he takes and he's, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen a full grown moose, but they're 7, 8, their legs are 8 foot tall. Like, they're just huge.
Yeah.
They're
giant animals. I mean, I've seen them in Colorado, and I've seen them a couple times in Idaho elk hunting.
Well, those are Shiras. You get to the Canadians.
They're a little smaller. Yeah, they're a little smaller here in the lower 48. Yeah, for sure.
And he was walking down that trail, and I'm like, he's gonna come by like this, like it was a 4-yard shot. Like, it was 4 yards.
4 yards. Holy smokes, man.
Oh, 4 yards. I'm like, and I remember thinking, I'm like, listen, this is going to be really, like, the hardest part of this is going to be like, it's like, you got to come to full draw, and you got like you don't have to get real intense, but you still have to pick a spot and focus.
Right.
Like, I instinctive shoot. So I do not gap shoot. I don't, but you can, you say 5, 10, 15 yards. Well, you can blow those shots if you just pull your bow back and start letting arrows fly. You're going to blow those shots. Like, you have to come to anchor. And I'm like, but my target is the size of a 55-gallon drum. I'm like, well, I'm not the greatest shot in the world, but this is really, if I miss this, like, this is really going to be. And my back was up against that tree, and as the moose was coming around the one side, I was going, like, I was trying to inch around the tree, because he's close. Like, the tree is, I'm totally behind the tree, and I remember getting around, and as he's coming, and I know he's going to come out, so I kind of leaned back, and when I drew my bow, I just canted my body like as he was coming out the one side, and I remember it's like I felt like I could touch him. I'm like,
right,
this is crazy. I'm like, and once I got my bow back drawn, and he was just kind of, and I'm like, this is too good to be true. So I shot him, and he runs out in the lake, and Brian had seen it. He saw the shot. He goes, that was a great shot. And, the moose runs out in the lake, and he's out in the lake, and he's standing there, and we're standing there, and we can see him out there. I'm like, well, what do we do? I said, what the freak? I mean, and when he tipped over, all that was sticking up was like one palm of his antler. Like, I'm like, he was in 5 feet of water out there or whatever. And he tipped over, and I'm like, oh, what? I mean,
how the hell did you get him out of that?
What? Do what?
How did you get him out of that?
Well, it was, so I stripped down. I said, and I would have swam out there to get him. Like, I'm like, at that point, I'm like, there's nothing, like, this is great. This is
right. Yeah. You just
part of it.
Yeah. You shot a great grizzly, and now you got a great moose on top of it. It's like, do what you got to do at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I stripped down to dang near nothing, and we had a set of hip boots in the boat, but I got out there, and I can remember going out there, the lake was really calm, and I at the lake, like by the time I just kind of got to them, the water was like within 2 or 3 inches to the top of those hip boots, so I was standing on my tippy toes trying to like didn't want to get down in the water to take in water. So we ended up, we had a little piece of rope, it wasn't much, so I got that around his horn, and then I backed up to where I had a little more, I was in a little shallower water, and and I was able to, water he kind of wasn't just dead weight.
Right.
He wasn't dead weight until we got him up to the bank.
Right.
So I got him fairly close, and then when we got him to where he was kind of touching, so we got him very, very close. We didn't get him on dry land. We got him close, and then we ended up, we had one side of him was like out. So we took some pictures, and we just pulled the, Brian went and got the boat. We pulled it down there by him, and we took one side of the, like we started in on, and the moose it's kind of a shame, but they don't waste any of the moose meat. Like all the moose meat gets it all. You have to fly it out, but I couldn't really fly it out and take it home. Like it's like I can't. So the natives and the local people, they just love it. Like it's free meat to them.
Yeah.
And you gotta get it out. Like, I don't want to waste it. I'm like, oh, this is a shame. So we ended up quartering it up. So we quartered one side up, and, we put a hind quarter, and we had the boat right there. So we take a quarter off, put it in a game bag, and we set it in a boat. And we take the front quarter off, and we take the neck meat. It just by process of elimination, we were making them lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
So we kind of once we got one side off, then we threw the hide back over him and rolled him back over and started on the other side. And again, the more we got him broke down, the better it was. But I remember that was about, like, I shot him in the evening, and man, it started getting dark. And that night was, the northern lights had come out.
Oh, wow.
They were just beautiful. Like it was as vibrant. I'd seen them earlier in the week, but this night they were just, I mean, it was like I loved it. I mean, I'll remember that. So that hunt there was probably my all-time. I shot a bear, huge grizzly bear. I shot that moose. I mean, I'll probably never pull that off ever again.
You saw the northern lights. Like it doesn't get much better than that.
No, it was, it was there was like nothing. It was just terrific, and I shot that moose, and we were that night. So we're on the other side of the lake, and this lake is like, it's a pretty big lake. Like this is a pretty big lake. I mean, it's not, but it was just that night. It was very calm, and it was as clear as glass. It was just like not a ripple on it. Just like you could see the northern lights, and
reflection.
There was enough ambient light that you could see the lake, and it's just like everything was calm, and it was stars, a million stars in the sky. Yeah. And I remember getting the moose in there, and I'm thinking, oh, this is the greatest. Well, then, so we get in this little Lund V-bottom, and we had all our stuff in there. And I think neither one of us were really thinking. And so we got in there, and a full moose rack, like everything. Like we didn't take 2 trips. We did it in 1 trip, which hindsight being 2020 was a dumb move.
Right.
Like, that was freaking stupid. Because there was that boat. Like we started struggling, and Brian was like, he was like running that kicker. And when we got out, and then we're getting ready to go across this lake, and we're kind of putzing. Like number one, the motor would never have got it up on plane, but the more power you give it, it starts kicking the front end up. Yeah. And we had so much weight on that boat. I'm like, look, you cannot. I'm like, Brian, like we literally, that boat was sitting out of the water maybe 3 or 4 inches. Like
right.
it was like, I'm like, we are freaking, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like I felt like my feet were dragging the bottom. I'm like, we are going to kill it. We are going to drown. This is not good. And I look back at Brian and I'm like, Brian, I'm like, hey, I said, you can't go any faster than this. He goes, yeah. He goes, I noticed that. And he just kind of laughed, He's like, yeah. He says, we got a lot of weight in here, don't we? I'm like, yeah, we do. I'm like, don't move, don't do. It's like, don't shift, don't do a thing, because we are gonna sink this boat and just nothing flat.
Right.
But anyway, we putzed it across and got it there, and that was, we were 2-3 in the morning by the time we got the quarters out and kind of got them hung up and got everything taken care of. But man, then the next day we kind of got, but it's, I had a grizzly bear.
Yeah. Cloud 9.
Oh, it was never, I was never, and I had rebooked right then, like when I was pulling the moose back, like, I don't even think, we didn't even get to bed that night. I said, hey, I'm booking. I said, you got a spot next year, right? He says, yeah. He says, I got one spot left. And he only did 2 grizzly bear hunts. Like he didn't do a bunch.
Right.
And, he goes, yeah. He goes, I still got one left. I said, I want it. I said, I want it. I'll give you, here, I'll leave my gear up here as a deposit till I get home. Like I didn't have much. I'm like, I give you $500. Like I said, I want it. I'm going to figure out how I can come back. Well, the other guy that was with me, he did not end up getting a bear. Mm-hmm. And he was super cool. He goes, Chris, he goes, I'd really like to come back. He says, but I guess you got the spot booked. So I'm like, yes, and I want to come back bad. And he was a super good guy. He was really a good guy. I enjoyed hunting with him. And he goes, well, if you decide you're not going to do it, he says, can I get the spot? He says, if you decide, he says, I'd really like to come back. So he goes, but you booked it. And so I ended up getting home, and that one led to, I'm like, well, man, I've killed a black bear. I've killed a grizzly bear. Now I want to kill a brown bear. Mm-hmm. So I started in on that quest. And while I ended up talking to getting some connections, and I think I got some of the connections when I was up there on that grizzly bear hunt, guys in Alaska that I might do an archery. Not everybody will do an archery grizzly bear, brown bear hunt. Yeah. And really not, then when you tell them you're shooting a recurve, some guys just want to stop talking to you. They're right. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Right. And so I ended up getting a guy in Alaska that did brown bear hunts, and I'm like, and I talked to a guy that had went, and he shot one with the bow. It was a compound, but he was bow hunting him. He goes, I'd go. I said, do you think I could do it? He goes, yeah. He goes, I think you could do it this camp. And that was hunting brown bears on, when they'd come in and feed off the salmon streams. Right.
Well, and what part of Alaska was that?
Well, I shot that brown bear down by Yakutat, which is kind of down south, kind of south of Cordoba. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of in what they call the rainforesty peninsula, like the real thick, like that peninsula. Yeah. Right on the coast, like it was right on the, where the ocean meets the land, like it was right on the coast there.
Man, that's my bucket list hunt is Kodiak Island with a bow. That's the one that if I could do one and only one, that would be it.
And I would like to I'd like to go back and do it again. And I really would like to go back and, like, I'd love to go Kodiak, a Fognac. I'd love to go to one of those areas out in Aleutian Islands that they really, like, they legitimately, you got a chance at a 9-10 foot brown bear. Like I would, that's kind of where I'm at too. But they're very, like, a lot of, and I'm not sometimes it's better to be lucky than be good. And I'm not. I have been very, very lucky on some of them hunts.
Right.
So I got back and I ended up going the next year, and I went to Alaska on that brown bear hunt, and so I called that guy that I hunted with. I said, look, I said, I'm going to book this brown bear hunt. Do you want to take that spot? I said, but if you take that spot, then the next year. So I just bumped my hunt back in BC back out to, but took the spot 2 years, gave him the spot for the following year. And that year I went to Alaska and went brown bear hunting. But nice. I ended up killing, and this was, I quit shooting my own bows in 2006, but in 2003, I shot that grizzly bear, and then, so that would have been fall 2003. So then in 2004, I shot probably one of my best black bear, like a nice Pope and Young black bear in the spring of 2004. And then the fall of 2004 was when I went to Alaska, and I shot a brown bear on a salmon stream on that hunt. And that one was equally, that one was pretty intense too. Like that was a good, totally different type of hunt, but man, It was really, really good. And so I shot that brown bear in 2004, and then I had a brand new Dodge pickup truck, to Dodge Cummings, and I bought it, paid for it, the whole 9 yards. Well, then I'm like, man, I've killed all the bears. I need to get a polar bear. Right. So in spring of 2005, I booked and went polar bear hunting.
Dude, how was that?
Polar bear.
How was that? And where was that at?
I will be honest with you. I did that thinking, it's like, man, I want to do that because of the experience. But if you said, hey, this podcast is going to sponsor you to go polar bear hunting at all expense paid, I probably would not take it.
Really?
It was the one hunt that I did. I didn't really have much control over it. It was it's a different kind of deal. They go out on the ice, they find the bears are like, they're oblivious. It's a weird deal. They turn the dogs loose, they kind of bay them up. It's just, the weather is just, it's brutal. Like, it's like, dude, it's like you're in survival mode the whole time you're there.
Right.
And I didn't really, again, it was very, I understand why people drink and why the depression, I'd be depressed too if I was in that. Like, it was just, I'm glad that I did it, but I would never go back and do it again. Like, it just wasn't something that,
it didn't tickle your fancy. It wasn't the experience you were looking for. It's like, cool, did it once in my life. I got the experience, but it's not something that's for me necessarily.
Yeah, no, it was, I did it. I'm like, it wasn't quite what I envisioned it being. It was like, I don't really, I shot the polar bear. It's probably, I did it. I completed, kind of did what I wanted to do. And I don't know. But so, the brown, then I went back to British Columbia then the following year. And then I think I took a couple of years off, and I went back to Alaska, and I've killed 2, 3, like the grizzly bears in Alaska. Like, if you go north, so if you go, there's a line there that shoots through Alaska. So you got brown bears from basically, I don't know, there's a pair, like, just, I don't know, somewhere around, there's a latitude line that goes across, and where it comes, from that latitude line south, I guess, to the Canadian border, like, those are all brown bears. Well, then in BC, if you can shoot a bear, like, from the coast to 100 miles in, I guess, is brown bears. So anything out on the coast, and those are the bears eating salmon, fish, and they get a lot bigger than the interior bears. But a lot of guys will go shoot brown bears or shoot grizzly bears in BC along the coast, and they're always like record book grizzly bears. I mean, they're
By proximity
technically
of
a
where they're
brown
living.
bear, and
Yeah.
it's what they're eating. They're not foraging. They're
Mm-hmm.
not. They're eating them fish. They get a lot of. They just get fatter and bigger.
Right.
But I killed 2 grizzly bears up in at a unit Laclede, which is just above that parallel, but basically you're hunting them on the coast, like you're hunting them right out on the, it's just just kind of a line in the sand to say, okay, if you shoot them over here, they're grizzlies. If you shoot them over here, they're brown bears. But it could be this, you're right on the coast, and they, if they're getting the fish, they're getting bigger.
Right.
So I killed 2 there, and then I went back to British Columbia. I think I've killed 5 or 6 grizzlies.
Man.
And the 1 brown bear.
Man, with all the excuse me, with all the hunts that you've done, man, and like you've been able to see some really cool country and had some great experiences. What's still left on your list of things that you want to do? Like, what are the things that you get most excited about hunting still, or areas you get most excited about hunting still?
I think, again, it's for me, it's like hunting, bow hunting with the recurve, doing what I do it's my hobby. It's not my, like, the hunting industry is like, I'm never, nobody's ever going to know my name. I'm a nobody, I'm a guy that likes to hunt, and it's my hobby. No different than going bowling or playing golf or, what other guys like to do. For me, it's what I like to do. I'm not going to be, the industry makes me want to puke, to be honest with you. Like, I have very few, I see guys, I'm around them, but I was like, I can't stand my dad, when I was younger, he's like, Chris, he goes, you never want to meet your heroes. And man, I have found that to be true. Like, I've been to the ATA shows. I've been to a lot of that stuff, and I just kind of takes it away. Like, I don't know. I mean, I just like it, it's a hobby for me. It's not, I'm not going to make any money at it. I don't do it because I want, I have nothing to sell. I have nothing to promote. I just do what I like to do because it's my hobby.
Yeah.
And that being said, I have got to do a lot of stuff when I was younger, and I love to deer hunt, and I love to elk hunt, and I love to do all that stuff. But the last probably 10 years, my kids I got, a son, and we spent a lot of time watching him play baseball and sports, and he was way better at it than I was. So I when my kids were younger, I spent a lot of times doing that. My daughters are both married, out of the house, and we got 2 granddaughters. So life's kind of, I'm 58 years old at this point. I don't I would love to go back and go grizzly bear hunting that, but again, some of my decisions earlier in life were all made kind of around hunting, and I've been extremely fortunate. Like, I'm not, nobody should feel sorry for me, but financially, it's like, man, maybe I should have made some different decisions. and this really is how cool my wife is. Like, we've talked about it, and when you get older, it's like, I don't really want to, like, I would go grizzly bear hunting again. I'd go do that. But a lot of it has for me, has kind of got to the point where it's like, I'm not going to spend the money to go do that, because I can't really justify it. And I like going to do, like truthfully, some of the, I drew a unit, really, really good mule deer unit out in Colorado. Nice. Took me 9 years to draw it. I went out there and hunted mule deer I hunted for 3 weeks, because I went out a little bit early to scout it. So I was out there for like 3 weeks. I came back, get some work done, and I went out for like the last week of the season. Like, I went back out. So I hunted basically mule deer for 4 weeks on a, out backpack type hunt, and just, and I loved it. And it wasn't really a break your bank deal. I go do things now that are like, yeah, I wish if I had the money, I probably would spend it on different things. But, I don't, it's like, man, my wife has been so good. It's like,
right.
Why don't you get what you want? She just, and I don't really have like I've thought about it. It's like, I'd like to go to Africa, I'd like to do that. And if I get there, I get there. If I don't, I don't. Like, I don't really, I think I want to do it until I, but really, I don't have the drive like I had. I mean, in my 20s and that, like, I had drive. I was like, okay, bear season, I'm going bear. I mean, I think my best year, I killed maybe 8 or 10 big game animals in the year, like bears and deer and elk, and and I had a few years where I consistently would get, of course you can shoot 2 white-tailed deer here where I am, but I had years that I was consistently shooting 5 or 6, and that's, deer, elk, bears, just bigger animals. But I don't have, like, I just don't, I don't know. I don't.
I mean, it sounds like now you're just kind of going with the flow, like whatever comes up that kind of seems interesting to you now. Like, it's like, yeah, let's check that out.
I've been like, really, I mean, little whitetail hunting, and when I hunted, when I got started years ago, again, there's no cell cameras. There was no, like, you went out and you looked for sign, you did this, you did that. And and nowadays it's I mean, I don't want to go down any kind of negative path, but I would be surprised if some guys even know what a deer track looks like anymore. Like, I truthfully, like, everybody's, and I've used cell cameras, and I'm not gonna like it can be a very, very good tool. I see that, but at a certain, I mean, let's see, I'm going to take it away from stuff like that, and I'll just take it over to fishing. Like, when I like to go fishing. We go down to Missouri, and I'll fish, and I'm not the greatest fisherman. I put a worm on a hook and throw it out in the water and let it soak. Like, I'm not, there's no rhyme or reason to throw this. If they don't bite this, I'll try this. Like, there's nothing. But when I go down and I see these guys, and there's guys that got more freaking computer screens on these boats, and then they go out and they're like, oh yeah, we found this tree, we found this, and there's the fish, and then you can see the judge. I personally, it's like, I don't know. I mean, you train jujitsu and you do all that. There's like a certain amount of skill level to do anything, whether you're bowling or you're doing anything like that. Like, at what point is it not? Like, if you and I roll around, and I don't do jujitsu, so I'm probably talking out of my head, but if I show up with my stuff on and a 32-inch freaking Louisville Slugger in the other hand, I mean, you probably are going to say, this isn't fair.
Right.
Like, at what point is it not? I mean, you don't do, I mean, I don't know. It's like,
I mean, I think we do these things, and there's a part that you should desire to acquire the skills, right, and not necessarily bypass the skill acquisition part of things, right? And I think
and hunting, it's all like, I mean, I think society in general is, I mean, I'm all for making life simpler when it comes to fixing my car and stuff like that, but that is making life, but just, I mean, any sport, it's like,
well, part of the pursuit of sports and things like that is to get better, right? There's like people may not go into it for this reason per se, but I think they gain the benefit of this, which is you're having to kind of have a delayed gratification, because when you start something, you're not inherently good at it usually, and it takes time to acquire the skill. And after you acquire the skill, then you start to see some of the results, and it's that delayed gratification, which makes it really kind of special or interesting, or makes you want to continue to do, or it creates a lifelong pursuit of that thing. I think.
Well, I think I mean, to me, and again, I can answer the question for myself. me going hunting it's a hobby. It's something I enjoy doing. Like I enjoy that process. So if I, and back in the guys that my friends back in the day, I was extremely driven. Like I was very, very driven, but never to the point where it's like, I want to do this, but I really couldn't, like if there was a shortcut to be gained, so that took something away from it. Like right. I have shot a lot of animals that maybe weren't the biggest and the best, but like deer that I've seen several different times I remember one time I come back and was eating breakfast with some buddies of mine, and I had seen 4 or 5 bucks that morning, and there was a 3-pointer, and I'm like, man, I said, I want to kill this 3-pointer. And they looked at me like I was nuts. Like, and that morning I'd seen a couple 8s and a 10, and this 3-pointer it was a 3-pointer, probably the oldest deer I ever killed. Like I had sent the jaw away, and they aged it at 6+.
Nice.
So they couldn't specifically say, but his teeth were wore down. I ended up shooting him 2 or 3 days later, and he literally had a spike on one side, but the spike was like 16 inches long, and then he had a fork on the other. But he was just a massive deer, like him, like he was mature, he was old, I'm like, that's the deer. And then I ended up shooting him. It was, I was gratified, it's like, man, that was, and I think that for me, it's kind of, I don't really want to take the shortcut. I do want to be successful. And it's like, if the animals win, I'm kind of okay with it. Like if you went and again, you win every jiu-jitsu match you ever go to, you probably like, it's like something will leave, like some part of that says, man, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I win all the time.
Well, and the shortcuts too, they don't last, right? It's like, it's because the shortcut is usually just like a short path to whatever the thing is that you want to attain at that moment. It's usually not applicable across all scenarios, right? And so in hunting, if you've figured out a shortcut, right, or whatever you're using as a shortcut, it's probably not going to work in all scenarios. So you might have success in this one scenario, right, or in this one instance, but it's probably not something you can, take with you to other places, right? Whether it's a different state, or whether it's a different species, or whether it's a different time of year even, or whatever the case is, right? And that's, and I think when you do that, I think that's what leads to people kind of leaving, whether it's hunting or whatever sport, right? Because you're not able to kind of take that one shortcut and create success over and over and over again with it necessarily. And then you've gotten kind of connected to the success, if you will, or that's the dopamine hit, as opposed to the dopamine hit being like the experience of learning and developing and having this skill or understanding that allows you to have an opportunity to have success. Doesn't mean you will be, but it gives you an opportunity to, right? And then to your point, sometimes the animals win. Most of the time they do. And that's okay. That's part of it.
Well, for me, and again, it's I don't mind being, you talk about going to the Grateful Dead, going to dead concerts. I used to do that by myself. Like it's like I'd get tickets. I'd drive up to Ontario or drive up, I'd get in the car and go. It's like, where are you going? I'm going to go. Like, I just would go by myself. Like, I didn't really, it's not like I had to have other friends. I had like a lot of my friends would be like, well, I'll go, but we all got to go together or what. I get along with myself really good.
I'm the same way.
I don't argue. There's no, who's paying for this? Like, there's really no conflict and it's the same way in the woods. Like if I go hunting and I decide to do this, if it don't work out, well, I just got to be mad at myself. Like if I go, like I have guys and I will, and again, Jason, I've hunted with Jason and I've got guys that I can hunt with, and they're usually very, very good, intense, and probably better hunters than I am. So I gravitate towards that. Right. I've hunted with younger guys that are just very, very, they kind of know what the gig is, and I can do that. But can't just hunt with anybody because and I know it going in, and you wouldn't want to. I mean, you don't want to hunt with me. Like I'm not. It just wouldn't be good because I am. And maybe I've mellowed just a little, but I do get pretty intense. Like it's like a very serious.
Yeah.
It's like a serious sport to me, and I put everything I can put into it to be successful. But I don't know. I just, again, for me, it's a sport, it's a hobby, and that's where I leave it at. And if I attain something that, like, if everybody can do it, then what separates you from them?
Yeah.
And everybody, look at baseball or any kind of sports. Everybody has a different degree of skill. Like some guys just have better. I mean, there's guys that are way better shots than I am. A lot of them. Like there's guys again, man. I mean, I shoot around them, and I'm around guys that are super, super good shots. But when they go to the woods, that's a different skill set.
Yeah.
That's what I really enjoy doing. And am I the greatest? No, I'm not. I'm not the greatest at all. I'm just extremely persistent.
Yeah.
Like I think persistence kills, and if you're hunting for yourself, or if you're doing it because you enjoy doing it, then you tend to stick with it, I guess. Back to your point. But if you're doing it just because somebody always shoots a bigger deer than you, somebody's always got a better spot, somebody's always got, like, there's always somebody that's got, and if that's what you're competing with, you just burn yourself out.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I shot a 125 and he shot a 175. It's like, okay, but a lot of times if you look at the context of this, that, and the other, it's not. I mean, it's
often apples and oranges, right? Like as far as
very, very much. And my wife, she'll be like, why when we'll go to different, events, maybe family or whatever, we're around people, and I don't really, like, guys, a lot of people know I hunt, and most guys that know me or this and they'll want to talk it, or they're here and they'll want to talk hunting with me, and they start talking and they'll be like, oh yeah, I shot this and I shot that, and I don't want like, if you went to Alaska and you shot a grizzly bear at 600 yards with your 6.5, off the mountaintop, that's great. That's what you chose to do. Totally legal. You went hunting, and that was the thing. But do not compare. Don't compare that to 12 yards. Don't. I don't.
Stick and string.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Like it's not. I don't. It's not. Doesn't make a hill of beans difference but it kind of is offensive to me. Like I don't say, I don't point that out. I don't. But
right.
If your mindset is telling you, well, yeah, we've both done the same thing. No, we haven't.
Right.
No, it's not the same.
It's like playing t-ball and playing Major League Baseball. It's like they both have a ball and a bat, but they are not the same.
No, and again, it's not. I'm not. I shoot fish. That's what I like to do.
Yeah, and good for that other guy if that's what he wanted to do, right? It's like, good for you, man. Like, that's the experience you wanted to have. Like, rock it out. Like, good for you. I
mean, I always go to, like, if I get into any kind of debate, I'm always like, it's like, well, it's like gun hunt's the same as bow hunting and crossbow. Like, you have all this debates on, who does what and who gets this. And I have my opinion, but what I always go back to is I'm like, lay a bunch of weapons on the table, rifles, crossbows, compounds, recurves, lay them all on the table. And then, if you could talk to an animal, pull an animal in there, pull a deer and say, hey, out of all these weapons, what do you want? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to hunt you here in 5 minutes. What do you want me hunting you with? I would be willing to say that if the deer could, like, talk to us, he'd walk right down to the end of the table and say, here, take this slingshot or recurve or whatever.
Right.
Come after me. He ain't stopping at the 6.5 Creedmoor with the, he's just not going to.
Well, there's a reason why the military doesn't use traditional equipment.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there's
there was a period of time where that's what people used, right? There's a reason why, those who can do not use that any longer for means of protection.
But those are again, those kind of get back to, is it a sport or a hobby, or is it again, if I have to
for sustenance,
if I have
different
to
story.
feed my family, like my family's going to starve, I am not picking a recurve.
Right.
Like I'm just, it's, I mean, I picked that weapon because that offers the biggest challenge,
most effective
for me personally.
Oh yeah. The stick bow being a challenge, but like the Creedmoor or whatever. It's like if you were feeding your family, like you were saying, like you would pick that one because that's the most effective. Like that's the one that's most likely to get the job done.
Yeah, or protect it, or again, take it to the analogy of the military, protecting my family, doing whatever. I'm not going to run downstairs and grab some wood arrows and say,
right. There ain't anybody sleeping with a bow underneath their pillow. You know what I mean? Like, so, but man, hey, we've been chopping it up here, dude, getting close to 2 hours. I want to be sensitive to your time, and I gotta get the ball rolling on my day. I want to let you get going and enjoy your rainy day. Man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your experiences with me. I'd love to have you back on at some point, man, because you're a wealth of information and a wealth of experiences that me personally, I just want to hear more of. And so, if you're into it, it's like, I'd love to have you back on at some point and chop it up some more.
No, I got, I enjoy talking. Like I said, it's a hobby, and I think, hopefully I do like talking about it, but I don't want, guys hear it. You don't want to be, negative or Debbie Downer. I just, I view everything from, probably a different, again, you said you were in your 40s. I mean, there is a bit of an age gap, and that's kind of, I view what I seen and kind of, my evolution, and, the younger, guys hearing it. I don't, everybody's got the capability to be pretty much successful at stuff if they're, put the time and effort into it. And again, I think keeping it in a perspective, is it why am I doing it? Definitely clears some things up for you, for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you, buddy. You have a good rest of your day. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible: Tacticam, Osseo Gear, Hawk Optics, Face Off E-Bikes, and Lathrop & Sons Boot Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.